The protagonist sat alone at a small diner, the soft hum of the room only broken by the clink of silverware and the low chatter of patrons. His plate of food, a modest meal, sat before him, but it was the quiet moment that suddenly shifted the atmosphere. The door creaked open, and in walked a woman. No, not just any woman, but someone different. She was tall, her posture unnervingly straight, with piercing eyes that glowed a soft blue. She had an aura that felt both alien and wild, like something untamed. Her movements were graceful, but there was an edge to her presence, something primal. She didn't look like she belonged here, and yet she made her way over to his table. The man was unsure whether to be intrigued or scared, but he couldn't help but notice the way her gaze lingered on his food. Without warning, she sat down across from him, her eyes locking with his. For a brief moment, the air was thick with tension. Then, she spoke, her voice low but clear. "I'm hungry," she said, almost as if it were an accusation. He hesitated. Her eyes were unsettling, but something in her stare made him feel like he had no choice but to offer her some of his meal. He pushed his plate forward slightly, unsure of what was happening. She didn't thank him. Instead, she picked up a piece of food and ate it, all the while keeping her gaze fixed on him. A minute passed. Another bite. She finished the meal without another word. But something had changed. There was a flicker of something in her eyes, a strange power, an intensity. When she finally spoke again, her words left him dumbfounded. "We're married now," she said, as though it was a fact, as though there was no room for debate. The man chuckled nervously. He thought she was joking. "What do you mean? We're not married." But she didn't laugh. Her expression remained unchanged, and her voice dropped, firm and unwavering. "The bond has been sealed. You gave me food. That's what matters. We are bound." He tried to push the thought away, thinking it was all just a bizarre misunderstanding. But as the days went on, strange things started happening. He saw her again, this time outside his apartment, standing still like a statue, waiting for him. She spoke to him, as if they had known each other for years. Her words were cryptic, but the message was clear. She was an alien werewolf, and the bond between them was something that transcended human understanding. The protagonist felt himself drawn to her, despite his better judgment. His world, which had once been simple and predictable, was now filled with strange occurrences. His senses heightened. He could smell things he had never noticed before, hear distant sounds with clarity, and his strength seemed to increase with each passing day. He tried to resist, to convince himself that this was all a fantasy, but the more he denied it, the more undeniable it became. She wasn't just an alien. She was a werewolf, part of a race that formed bonds through food. That meal they shared was more than a simple act of kindness. It was a sacred ritual, one that connected their souls. And she wasn't going to let him forget it. The more time he spent with her, the stranger things became. He found himself feeling more powerful, more in tune with his surroundings. But at the same time, he felt a growing sense of unease. He was no longer just a man. He was something else, something tied to a wild, otherworldly creature. And with that bond came danger. One night, as he and the girl walked through the city, a group of alien hunters appeared. They were tall, menacing figures, their eyes scanning for their target. The girl immediately recognized them and went into defense mode, her eyes glowing as she prepared to fight. The protagonist barely understood what was happening, But he didn't have time to question it. The fight broke out suddenly, and the girl fought with a ferocity he had never seen before. Her strength, her speed, it was as if she were no longer human. But she was, and so was he now. They managed to escape, but the danger was far from over. The alien hunters were just the beginning. There were others who sought to sever the bond between the protagonist and the girl. Others who didn't understand the connection they shared, or worse, feared it. The protagonist began to realize that his life was no longer his own. He was part of something much larger, something far more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. The girl explained to him that the bond they shared wasn't just an accident. It was something that had been written in the stars, a prophecy that had been foretold long before their worlds collided. The bond had the power to change everything, but it also came with a price. There were factions on her home planet who wanted to control the bond, to use it for their own purposes. And they would stop at nothing to break it. The protagonist tried to resist, but the more he fought against it, the stronger the pull became. Every moment with her felt like a storm, a whirlwind of emotions, power, and primal instinct. He no longer knew where he ended and she began. His world had become a blur of alien landscapes, strange politics, and battles for survival. One night, the girl brought him to a hidden place, a sanctuary of sorts, where she explained the truth behind their bond. It wasn't just about marriage. It was about survival. The universe was in chaos, and their bond was the key to saving it. But the more he learned, the more complicated everything became. He had to decide if he was willing to accept the role he had been given. Was he ready to give up everything he had known, to become something more? In the final battle, the protagonist was faced with a choice: to leave the girl behind, to sever their connection and return to a normal life, or to embrace his new destiny. He chose the latter, realizing that no matter how hard he fought it, he couldn't escape what was happening. He was no longer just a human. He was something else, something bound to an alien werewolf girl for all eternity. The story ended with the protagonist and the girl standing together, ready to face whatever came next. They were no longer just two beings from different worlds. They were one, bound by something deeper than mere marriage, by a bond that could never be broken. Together, they would fight for their survival, their love, and the future of their worlds. The universe had changed, and so had they.